I got blindsided. Like our running back fumbled, and I was chasing the guy to make the tackle. I get blindsided, and something felt off, and I found out I had lacerated my kidney on that one. So that one was tough. And then coming back the next year off this one, in OTAs or spring practice, I tear my ACL the first day, catching a route and just kind of turning up the field on a guy. And
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. I have a very special guest. Many of you will know who he is. It's Hunter Henry. He's a current NFL tight end and was drafted in the second round in 2016 by the San Diego Chargers. Personally, I was very pleasantly surprised at how receptive he was to be on the podcast when I messaged him on Instagram, but I'm definitely very thankful for him taking the time to do this during his offseason when he should probably be relaxing with his family right now. I know that he's had a couple of big injuries over the past couple of years, and I just felt like he was a good candidate for the show. I've been advocating a lot for addressing the mental side of recovery, and I think hearing his unique perspective as a professional athlete will be great for all of us. Needless to say, I'm very thankful for you coming on the show, Hunter. Welcome to the show.
yeah, man, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of just hop right into it. And do you mind just telling us a little bit about your injuries in the NFL?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten beaten up in the NFL. It hasn't been the easiest for me, but so throughout I've been playing football since I was 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old, and really never dealt with any injuries. I think I had some minor ones, obviously, like ankles, maybe rolled an ankle every once in a while, but nothing really too serious. And even throughout high school, throughout college, never had any really big injuries. And then I got to the NFL, my rookie year. I kind of had nothing that held me back really. I had like a small knee thing that made me miss a week. And then the next year, I played pretty much a full year. And then I think it was the second to last game, I got blindsided. Like our running back fumbled, and I was chasing the guy to make the tackle. I get blindsided, and something felt off, and I found out I had lacerated my kidney on that one. So that one was tough. And then coming back the next year off this one, in OTAs or spring practice, I tear my ACL the first day, catching a route and just kind of turning up the field on a guy. And then coming off that this past year, feeling good, feeling really, really good. And then the first game this year, I get hit and my knee kind of like hyperextends, and I have a tibia plateau fracture. So definitely been through the ringer of injuries. Definitely tough, but they've taught me a ton, and it's been tough, but it's also been fulfilling and rewarding at times too.
Yeah. And uh, as for me personally, I see a lot of ACLs. Approximately 75% of my patients are ACLs. So, and it's something I've been through personally and what led me to the field. And honestly, just
Yeah.
bring it all back. That's how kind of you and I are being connected right now. Do you mind talking us through a little bit about that initial moment after you hurt your ACL? Like, did you know you hurt it right away? Did you hear anything? Like, what was kind of going through your head during that time?
Yeah. So mine was, I've heard many different stories, obviously, going through it, of how people kind of felt after, what happened during. So mine was weird. Mine didn't really hurt. Um, I mean, I have a high pain tolerance, I will say, but mine didn't hurt that bad. I caught an out route, a route that I literally catch all the time, and with the guy on me, I made the cut to go upfield, and yeah, I felt something weird. But then I just kept running. I like finished the route. Like I kept running down the field with the torn ACL or whatever, I had going on there. And then I came back, and I mean, obviously my knee didn't feel great, and it just felt like weird and loose. And but I then I saw the doctors and all that stuff, and obviously they kind of gave me the look like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be this is good. This
Mhm.
isn't good at all, actually. And that's never what you want to see on your team doctor's face. That's for sure. Never want to see that again. Tired of seeing that. But yeah, basically, I didn't. Mine was different than a lot of other people's. I really didn't have too much pain with it, and it's kind of a freak thing, and just kind of crazy to actually hear that what I actually did to it.
Yeah. What was your initial reaction after you finally got the confirmation that was like they told you like Hunter, it's it's an ACL tear? What was your initial reaction?
Oh man, there's a lot of emotions. Tons of emotions. I mean, it sucked. It was really, really, really hard. I mean, I just went through everything, lots of ups and downs, because really it was like going into this year, I was always kind of second fiddle to Gates.
Hmm.
And I love that role too, but like it finally was kind of not, it was kind of like they handed over the keys to me into the room. And then it was like, boom, you get hurt like right then, right before you get the opportunity to do it. So it was pretty frustrating for me in that aspect of just, finally I got a chance to kind of be the guy. And then, it just was kind of taken away from me because of a, freak injury like this. And so I thought about that. I also was getting married pretty soon. I was getting married actually like 5 or 6 weeks later. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like she's gonna hate this. And so obviously me and my wife now, like we had to go talk through it and work through everything, and that part of it was hard. There was just so many emotions. I mean, lots of tears, and yeah, it was hard. But once I was able to figure it all out, I was just kind of, I went through those emotions and processed them, and then was like, all right, how are we gonna attack this? I think.
Yeah, I think it's I definitely appreciate the fact that you are so honest with how you felt, because I think a lot of times from the outside perspective, you are a professional athlete, and I think some people, and maybe myself included, we think of you guys as like the highest level, and we're like, oh, they're invincible. They don't cry. They don't feel this. They don't feel anything. But from
Yeah.
your perspective, you obviously took that very hard because you were getting ready to step into a role that was yours for the taking. Essentially, it was Gates
Hmm.
was kind of on his way out a little bit, and it was your time to shine. And you probably went into that OTA like I'm about to kill it right now. I'm ready. And then
Yeah.
first OTA, like you said, it was a first practice, and in an instant everything changes. And I think
Yeah.
that it's a lot of times, like you and I talked about our face a little bit before, and it's just a lot of times it's not really our plan. There's a lot of times it's different things at work, and a lot of things that what we think is going to happen perfectly A B C D doesn't really happen that way. And
No doubt.
yeah, and
Uh-huh.
I as far as you, from since we're already on that topic, how have you been able to handle like the mental side of recovery? Like from day one, you understood that it's going to be a very long recovery. It's not a minor ankle sprain that you dealt with when you were a kid. That's 1 or 2 weeks off, no big deal. But this was, you knew, it's going to be months and months and hours rehab. Like, what was it like for you going through that grueling process of rehab?
At first, I don't know if I was. I mean, immediately, right? You're like, golly, this is about to be. You don't know what's ahead of you, right? And then as I talk to more and more people, I understand it. I research it. Like, wow, this is about to be a grind. And then you don't really know it really until you go through it. And then you're in it, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. But I just got to keep pushing. Like you said, I think my faith was the biggest thing that got tested. And faith is very important to me, and I think it kept me steady. It kept me level-headed. It, kept me with something to push for, and I don't know, it just kept me solid. Even when everything's taken away from me, I still have something that's so awesome,
Hmm.
and to find joy in that. So even in the struggle, but I think the mental side of it, man, was just once I figured out my surgery date, figured out all that, I was like, all right, I'm trying to get back as fast. Like my head, obviously, it's like a competitor is like, how can I kill this recovery? How can I just attack it every single day? What can I do to make it better? What can I do to make it like faster and hopefully heal faster in any way that I can? And just attack it every single day. And really, I felt like I did. And I just, once once I had all those emotions behind me, obviously there was waves of emotions. I mean, you're riding a roller coaster throughout the whole time. I mean, there's still tons of tears throughout the times of, sitting on the sidelines and having to watch and sit back and go through those things. Those things are hard too, and you still have to battle that. All those emotions come back up again when you have to really go through what you're missing out on. So that part's hard, but then I think I just transfer that also to my rehab and like, all right, let's freaking just crush my rehab today and just get all this out, like, how
Hmm.
you just love a good workout when you're, going through something sometimes. And I think I just attacked rehab that way and just try to do as much as I could to try to get back as fast as I can and, just as good as I can.
Yeah, and I think a big thing that I talk to a lot of the athletes that I work with is trying to take it one day at a time. It's easy to just think like, how can I get from point A to point B and not look at every single little
Right.
thing in between?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I'm sure you remember that stupid brace that you had to wear for a few days, and then crutches, and
Oh, yeah.
it's like, when can I walk without this thing? When can I bike? All these little things that serve as landmarks, basically, that you have to clear before you can get to jogging and then
For
cutting
sure.
and running. And I really encourage that aspect of it because I think it's important. You can't just keep focusing on when can I play football or whatever sport it is that you're playing. Got to be looking at those little details that end up making a big difference. And for you, successfully coming back from ACL rehab, which is a very, very challenging task in itself. And I think trying to
Yeah.
compartmentalize it a little bit definitely helps with that side of rehab.
Yeah. That's what yeah, I kind of forgot to talk about that, but that was like the biggest thing I think. You kind of just forget about it. You just look, and then you have to look back on it. It's like you got to celebrate the small victories.
Hmm.
That's what you really have to do. And like everybody that I'm around now, that I like, one of my best friends now is kind of going through an Achilles injury, and he's coming back off that. And I'm just trying to like, he just celebrating the small victories. Like you just kind of take things for granted sometimes until you're put in the moment, like where, dude, just getting up from the couch is hard and it's the worst thing ever. You're a week out from surgery, you have no quad, you have no strength, you have just pain, and just getting up, like sitting up from the couch, like it's a small victory, man. Like
Yep.
getting your knee all the way bent in 100 and whatever 20 degrees or whatever it was, and getting your knee straight after ACL injury, like just things like that. Like then you start walking, and then oh shoot, all of a sudden you're jogging, and then you make a cut for the first time, and then you do the cut that did your ACL on. I think it's just like each time you just gotta have to celebrate those small victories and like appreciate them, and then they'll add up, and then you have the ultimate victory of coming all the way back.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely a big part of the journey that I love being part of. I love being at my athlete's first game back, and it's just such a cool experience, especially because if I see them from day one, where they're unwrapping the bandage and you're seeing the bloody knee and all that kind of stuff, and seeing you like in full pads, like ready out, getting out there on the field,
Hmm.
it's such a cool thing to be a part of.
Oh,
Um,
no doubt. That's
and
cool.
for you, you play obviously a very, very physical sport. You play a position where people are literally coming to tackle you with a ball.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to fully trust your ACL after the tear?
Oh man. So I came back actually pretty fast. I came back and played in the playoff game.
Mhm.
And I would say I trusted it then, but I think I'd be lying to you if I said there was some stuff still in the back of my mind in that game at
Yeah.
times. Like I never got hit really on it, anything like scary. So that was kind of fortunate. They limited me a little bit, so it wasn't as bad. But I think trusting it completely and feeling my best um, was truly probably a year out for myself. Um, just cutting wise, people around my knees. And then really it did took all the way till the preseason the next year, I would say. So that was like I was a year and probably 2 or 3 months, and then finally like taking hits on it.
Hmm.
Like I never really took hits in practice on my knees. Like guys were around it, and I started feeling comfortable. But like to finally take a hit on my knee without a brace on, like it was just kind of like, shoot, okay, it's still there, we're good.
Yeah.
So probably I think a year, and then after that, it was just continued to get better and better.
Yeah. It's the game speed is always, it's pretty much impossible to replicate. Your coach is not going to have one of your teammates hit you as hard as they can, like they would be in an actual game. So that for you in your
Right.
position, that's borderline impossible to replicate. And you kind of have to take a couple of hits to kind of shake the cobwebs out and be like, oh yeah, I'm good. Like all those hours and hours and hours of work I put in is pay in fruition right now, which is why I'm able to take this hit and I don't have any pain.
for sure.
I don't think about it. So I think I think it's very encouraging the fact that you even stated from as a professional athlete, it still took you about a year to even over a year for you to be like, I'm 100% there. A lot.
Right. And I think I could get the job done at a high level still, probably about 8, 9 months. Like I was
Mhm.
good, but like I wasn't probably as explosive and like just like as like everything I wanted to be until like probably a year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely appreciate you saying that. It's good to hear that even the professional athletes still deal with with that side of recovery. That it takes a while for it to all to come back. So it's definitely really encouraging to hear.
Just how it goes, man.
And
How it goes.
can you describe for you what it was like when your trainer, your PT, your ortho was like, Hunter, you're ready to go? Like, what was that moment for you like when you're like, wow, this months of rehab, I'm like finally ready to go for this playoff game?
Yeah, man. Sure, there was tears that day too. I remember. Um,
Happy tears, right?
it was right before that playoff game, and they cleared me. And I like I said, I wasn't 100% at that time, but I was, I felt great. I really
Mhm.
did. I felt awesome. And just to know that, like, hear that and just know that I was able to at least go out there and compete and do what I love to do. It was just so fulfilling, so rewarding, and just a lot of weight. Kind of, I was like, golly, I just did, I didn't just do all this to just do it. Like, it was, um, because there was hard times throughout that recovery too, so many hard times. And it just all paid off when I got to hear that, and I was pumped and just filled with a lot of emotions that day too.
Yeah. Some of the times when I clear my athletes, they almost like they gave me like a blank stare. They're like, "What did you just say to me? Like, are you serious?" kind of thing. And it's a very again, that's the part of the process that I love being part of, that really end stage where like, yeah, you're ready to go. Like you're the one who put in all this work, all the time in the weight room that nobody really sees. You're the one who's
Hmm.
rehabbing hours and hours and hours, and
Right.
your teammates are out there practicing on the field, and that's reverting back to what you said earlier. One of the bigger things that I think most athletes struggle with is the fact that you are standing there on the sideline. No matter what, you can put on the jerseys and you can try and be in the team meetings and all that kind of stuff, but it's just very different actually being on the field, on the court, whatever it is,
No
um,
doubt.
screaming with your teammates. It's different. And I think to a certain extent, every athlete just takes it, instead of competing on the field, you basically took it as, I'm going to compete in my own rehab. I'm going to be the best Hunter Henry I can be in the rehab room, and just killing it so that I can be ready to play. And obviously end up working out for you since you're able to get back relatively quickly, which is definitely a cool thing. And
Right.
I think something that I wanted to ask you was that, I work with mostly high school and collegiate level athletes. So I have a pretty good idea of what their rehab process is like. But for you as a professional athlete, what was the daily rehab for you? Like, are you rehabbing, 3, 4 hours a day type of thing? Like, how did they kind of manage you during the rehab process?
Yeah. So I try to do as much as I can, man. Obviously, I'm very blessed to have a lot of resources at my disposal, and I was able. I just tried to use all of them as much as I could. So I did most of my rehab with the Chargers, like with their training staff, and so I would go in. It was like a work day for me. I'm rehabbing probably 6 days a week. I mean, Sunday off. I would obviously we had to have like recovery days.
Mm,
When you start doing stuff and your knee might flare up or your knee is pretty sore, stuff like that. But I mean, I'm in there 6 days a week. Saturdays too. Sometimes Sundays I wanted to do stuff if it's during the season because it's just like this is my routine and I'm ready to get back. Um, I think recovery is the biggest thing. Was the biggest thing I learned. I think just like recovering and let your body recover. But my daily routine, I'd probably get up at like 7 or like 6:30. Get in there by like 7:30. I'm eating breakfast, getting fueling up for the day. Um, and then we would start rehab. I'd always usually do like you know, obviously not in the beginning, but like once we got into rehab, like really rehabbing, I would do like hot tub every day to try to get warm, get everything moving good. Then we always like do soft tissue work, flexibility, movement, and then obviously start like strength or like a lot like it was like a strength day. I'm doing that in there, like a lot of controlled stuff, a lot of BFR, um, which I love BFR. BFR is brutal, man.
Yeah.
And then let's see what else. We're just doing everything, man. I'm probably in the Chargers in there maybe 2 or 3 hours. And then after that, once I was like moving around good, I'm, usually doing a lift with our strength coaches. Either, even when it was early on, I'm doing upper body, just trying to
Mhm,
like build my upper body, like keep my upper body strength. And so like not everything goes away.
mhm.
Doing that. And then obviously once I was able to like, just continue to build strength with my legs, my quads, just trying to, put it on top of that. And then, I'm eating lunch and recovering, but then I would go usually over to another guy. So at first I worked with a guy named Dr. Liebel, with his Pro Sports Institute. I did a lot over there, and I would just go over there and we would do some extra work. Sometimes it'd be body work, a lot of flushing stuff like recovery, trying to make my scar, like a lot of scar tissue, trying to get scar tissue out and move it around and do that. And then towards the end of my process, I moved over to a guy named Drew Morcos with Modus Specialists.
Okay.
And I love them, man. Drew and Christy is another one that's in there that I worked with a lot. And just, a big credit to them, honestly, for just like, I think they were awesome and just like getting me ready to go for the season. And so it was a daily thing of just kind of Chargers, going in there, rehabbing all morning, like, a workout. I also had like massage guys that I'm working with. So I had a lot of resources I was able to use, and I just try to use as much as I could.
Yeah, that's definitely good. And I I think you, like you said, you were blessed enough to have all these resources. And at the end of the day, not everybody has these resources. But
Right.
I would say the best thing that I heard from the PT side of things was the fact that you mentioned the word recovery. A lot of
Yeah.
times as an athlete, you're most of the time as an athlete, you're always like, if I'm not doing something, that means I'm falling behind. But
Oh, I know.
for the ACL side, that's not always the case. Like you said, you had
Right.
flare up days where you probably couldn't do too much with your knees, and maybe that day you just did recovery stuff and lifted upper body or whatever it was, but you have to leave your knee alone certain days because you have flare ups. And I think that again is something that I teach to my athletes a lot, is that like we can't do something 6-7 days a week because your knee's just not going to be able to handle it. It's not a quote
Right.
unquote normal knee at the time. So that's definitely something I appreciate again from it's honestly really cool for me to hear, like, even though again from your side of things, it still very much mirrors the stuff that I'm doing with my high school and collegiate level
Yeah.
athletes.
Yeah,
Uh,
no doubt. It's recovery is huge. I think that was the biggest thing. Like you said, I mean, it's like we do. Like that's just what we do, right? Like we just work. It's no days off, right? And like that's just kind of like your mentality. And early on, I think it's easier. I think it's like the late stages too, which is hard too to even continue to do that because it's still not a normal knee.
yeah,
It's still like trying to recover. Early on, I think it's a little easier to do it more, like because you're like, dude, I literally can't do anything.
yeah, yeah.
And then, later on, it's like, I mean, my knee's sore, but I bet I can get through it, right?
Hmm.
But like, it's like, dude, your knee's still recover, like it's still going through a process. So,
Hmm.
those days are, just and I would just sometimes I would push it too hard, where it's like, all right, and then I'm rolling it out, and sometimes it just needs to like, you just need to chill, like you
Yeah,
just need to relax,
yeah,
like that's it, like you don't need to even like have people rubbing on it or anything, like because that can just make it worse too. So that's something I had to learn, is just to like sit back and relax and kind of let the body heal.
yeah. And as far as the rehab side, is there anything that you personally would have changed throughout your recovery?
Um, changed. I think like my extension in my knee. Obviously I got it and it was good, but I think I should have just continued. I didn't. I kind of stopped working on it a little bit, honestly, and I lost some of that throughout my process a little bit, and had to kind of gain it a little later, which
Hmm.
not fun was not fun at all. So I think
Hmm.
I would just continue to work on my extension of my knee and just make sure that it was all like moving good, like throughout the whole time. I got it and then just kind of ignored it and had to kind of get it again later, and it was not fun.
I honestly cannot wait for any of my athletes to hear you say that, because I say the word extension to them pretty much every single session because it's just a big part of the rehab process. You have to get it
No
all the way
doubt.
back. And again, Steph, it's almost like this was meant to be as far as you saying that, because I preach the word extension all the time. I tell them right after surgery, you should be doing this like tens and tens and tens and dozens and dozens of times a day, because it's necessary to just keep it there. Like you said, like you got it
Right.
and then you stopped working on it and you kind of lost it and you had to regain it, type of thing. So yeah,
You don't want that, I
yeah,
promise.
yeah, and
Whoever's
because
listening, you don't want that.
because it's so
You
much harder
don't.
to get later on, as opposed to right after surgery. You're kind of like, oh, I'm getting 2 degrees every single day. But later on, when you are months after rehab, you're sitting there holding that thing probably with weight for a very long time, trying to just break
Yeah.
through that little bit of barrier. So yeah,
Shoving it, man, and it was terrible. It hurt really bad, I
yeah,
promise you guys. And I have a high pain tolerance, and it did not feel good.
yeah. And like we've talked a lot about how every athlete goes through the struggles when recovering from an ACL tear. And for you, you had the tibial plateau fracture too. And during that recovery process, we talked about how a lot of times athletes do feel alone. So for you personally, what advice would you have for, friends, coaches, family members, people like that around your life who, maybe someone who's going through this? Like, what kind of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I learned a lot, but that aspect of things too. I think it shows, a true friend and a true teammate, even when, everything's not going good. I mean, I think it really just shows. So for me, it's always just, I feel like in a way, kind of, I'm able to show God's love a little bit to them, and just that no matter what happens, like, I'm still your friend. Like, it's not because we play football together, right? It's, I enjoy being around you, and you're a great person to be around. So, and just having people that would come up to me and just talk to me and just like, just encourage me. People sent me stuff like that means the world to you in
Mhm.
that time. So like just doing little things, like just small acts of service, means a lot. And I remember like chocolate covered strawberries are like my favorite. So like, my I think somebody sent us those like this year when I did my knee, and I was just like, oh my gosh, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, oh, thank God. Like, and you're just down. Like, it sucks. Like this year was the hardest, coming off an injury and then have another injury like right away. It was like, what the heck? And like one of my team, like friends on the team and like teammates, he sent him and his wife, or girlfriend or fiance, sent us, some strawberries, and we were just like, "Dang, that is just awesome." Like that they would think about us. And so anytime, I see guys getting hurt, I try to like at least talk to them and keep them involved and just see how they're doing and how their recovery process is going. Because just even just talking to guys, just like when guys would just talk to me and keep it simple and just like, dude, how is your knee feeling? Or, like, or, how are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
is everything good? Like, just that, can mean a lot to somebody, and just really also help them in their rehab because, there's a lot of times you're just like, this is dumb and I feel alone and I'm tired of all this.
Yeah, I think this you definitely hit it right on the nail, where just being a supportive friend. And I think asking sometimes, especially for, again, we've talked a lot about ACLs, but for the ACL side, you're going to be spending months thinking about this knee, worrying about this knee, rehabbing the knee. But a lot of times people don't really ask about, like for you, like Hunter, the human being,
Yeah,
and at the end of the day, you are not just a knee, you are not just a football player. You have plenty of other interests outside of it. So a lot of times it's just, I'll text my athletes, just be like, how are you doing? How's school? Subtle stuff like
hmm,
that, where let's just take your mind away from the knee for a
for
little
sure,
bit. So I
for
think that's
sure.
really, really cool that you have taken your experiences, and you said your friend is going through an Achilles, and I'm sure you've been talking to him and talking to him, being a supportive friend through that whole process. I'm sure he definitely really appreciates that as well. Um,
Trying to, trying
yeah,
to. I
yeah.
know it's a lot on them.
And so this is going to kind of lead me into my last question. And what would you say is the most important thing you've learned through your injuries? And for you, we talked about the past 2 years has been really challenging for you. So I guess particularly in this past couple of years, like what have you learned about yourself?
Yeah, I think not taking anything for granted, man. Sometimes I feel like you can take being healthy and being able to do what you love and being active and everything. Like you can take it for granted. And I try to as much as I can just to remember those hard times of rehab and remember those emotions I had early on of missing out on things. And so I think just not taking things for granted because you're super blessed when you're healthy. And just like every time I walk off the field now, I just try to remember like and just be thankful and appreciative that like I got to walk off that field healthy and got to every game I got through. I think me and my wife are both like, oh man, thank the Lord we got through that one. We just got to go do it again next week. And
Yeah.
so it's just like and like every practice too, it's just little things like because I got hurt in practice. Like practice for me was like obviously it's competitive, but it's practice. Like you're not going to get hurt in practice. And then for
Mhm.
me to get hurt a couple years ago in practice, it was like I take everything, I'm thankful for everything. I'm thankful for every workout, and just I think it just put a new appreciation in my heart.
Yeah, I think that's really, really great. I think it's a great message, and pretty much it flows into the theme that I'm trying to get across with this whole podcast is that you took a negative experience, and I say it all the time, where tearing your ACL is a very crappy thing that happened to any single person. I don't wish it upon even my worst enemies, but you just try to take a negative experience and make it into a positive. And for you, you are just you're at the point where you're just very thankful for even just being able to play the game of football. And for you, you took your negative experience and now you're showing more empathy and compassion towards friends and teammates who are going through different types of injuries. So I think that at the end of the day, every single athlete, right, who's listening to this and is going through difficult times with whatever injury you're going through, like try and just make it into a positive to the best way possible. All of us have learned through it. Like for Hunter, you've grown to be more appreciative for the sport that you play, and for me, it led me to this profession. So a lot of
Right,
positive has come through our horrendous ACL injuries, and at the end of the day, for me,
for
I
sure.
wouldn't take it back. And I don't know. I guess that'll be my final question for you. Would you take back your ACL tear? That's a tough question, I know.
Uh, yes,
Okay.
not gonna lie, I
Okay.
would. But at the same time, um, yeah, I probably take it back. Honestly, I'm
Okay.
not gonna lie to you.
No, I
But
appreciate I
but
appreciate the honesty.
I did learn a lot. I'm not gonna say that I didn't learn a lot, and I grew a lot and all that. But I think in the end, I probably would take it back if I had to.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you saying that. And it's all about perspective at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we can't really take that part of it back. But again, you are learning from everything that you've gone
Oh
through.
yeah, for sure.
So I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, Hunter. Do you mind just plugging your Instagram in case anyone wants to follow you and to support you in your career?
Yeah, man, sure. Hunter Henry 86 is the Instagram. So if you want to give it a follow, sure, man. Follow my life, me and my wife, Parker, and see what's going on. Try to keep you updated as much as we can.
Awesome. Awesome. I know you have a big summer ahead of you, and I wish you nothing but the best. I wish you good health, and I look forward to just watching how your career continues to unfold. I know you have still have plenty of years ahead of you to play, and I look forward to watching your career continue to grow.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thanks.
having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for watching today's video. Please feel free to like and subscribe and share it on your social media platforms. If you're interested, I have started an ACL Mastermind group, which is a growing library of content centered around ACL rehab. It has exercises ranging from immediate post-op to late-stage sports-specific movements and everything in between. It's a growing library and currently holds over 250 videos. There's content centered around assessments, movement breakdowns, exercise breakdowns, case studies, and a whole lot more. You also gain access to a private forum where you can engage with like-minded people, ask questions, share research articles, and share resources. If you're interested, please feel free to click the link below. Thank you for watching.